You
like,
raised 2 kids in the house with
Yeah.
with the 50-gallon water heater. Oh my God.
yeah. Oh,
How did you guys live?
the humanity?
Just kidding.
Yeah. And yeah, that is first come, first serve is how that
It
works.
can be on
Get
certain
up-
days.
Get up early.
Yeah. We're on the air. Andy, how you doing, man?
We're in it. I'm good.
We're in it. Hey, welcome to everybody listening and watching over on the MTGA playlist on the Mechanical Hub YouTube channel. I appreciate you guys.
What about those AI images?
Those
Man.
I tell you,
Just
those
fire
thumbnails,
emojis.
those AI thumbnails, those are some good images, man. I have fun creating, creating. Yeah, I'm not doing anything other than prompting ChatGPT.
Yeah.
That right there is worth the $20 a month I'm spending on it. No, I use it for lots of different things, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Do you know my son? This isn't even what we set out to talk about, but one of my sons was telling me the other day, Jacob says, yeah, I use it to create shopping lists for groceries based off of recipes I have it make for me. And I'm like, what? Of course that's what you could do. It never thought of it until he told me this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And he's like, yeah, I just tell it like I want to eat, low carb meals that take, less than 20 minutes to prep. That's with awesome. No more than 5 ingredients each. It comes up with like 4 different meals and the grocery list for the meals.
Yeah. So like Eggo waffles and green beans or
no, he's kind of he's a foodie. He's I thought that was fascinating. And here I'm over here trying to make, podcast thumbnails for YouTube, and I'm like, check this out. And I'm sending you pictures of it. And it's like some Milwaukee ray gun kind of thing, like and he's like, yeah, I have my whole meal prep done in like a minute.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
It's insane.
The world we live in. It does go to show you we all have a lot to learn from our own kids.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that's not what we were kind of talking about today.
No.
We for anybody that's been watching over on the socials, you saw this past about a week ago, I started a Friday morning on Instagram with a selfie video post saying I'm tearing out my water heating system and my boiler at my house. I got to get this done over the weekend. Wife is out of town, and I was like convinced I was taking on too much for myself for the weekend.
Yeah.
Oh man. And I did it. It is a lot. It is a lot for a lot of reasons we're going to talk about in this episode quick.
Yeah.
This isn't a, well, woe is me kind of sentiment here either. I mean, for a minute, I was sort of getting annoyed with myself. I was never like panicked. This is something that we do on a regular basis for our customers. But as we will talk about in a minute, when you do it at your own home, it's different. It's just different. And then, of course, add on to it, the whole Mechanical Hub thing where I'm going to pretty much try to video every aspect of it.
Yeah.
So if you're not into doing that on a regular basis, let me tell you, that only makes it take about 4 times as long. So there you go.
Yeah.
So as you are familiar with, you've showered in my house. That's not a weird thing to say. You've stayed at my house.
Yeah.
I have, as you're familiar, I had 2 tankless water heaters, and I've had them since like 2012, maybe.
Yeah. They were the original A series Navians.
Yep. NPE A 240s. I had 2 of them. And the reason I had 2, generally speaking, 9 days out of 10, I don't need 2 of them. We have a large soaking tub in our primary bathroom. Used to be called a master. And it has a full flow, as much as you can get a full flow, 3/4 inch connected like Roman tub faucet.
Mm-hmm.
And when as you know, Andy, because you have one yourself, and you've installed them, when you have that kind of faucet, you could kill a tank water heater in about less than 5 minutes.
Easy less than 5. Yeah.
At 6-7 gallons per minute flow, 10 minutes, or let's say it's 6 gallons a minute. At 8 minutes, you've completely gone cold on a 50-gallon power vented water heater, gas water heater. 100%. 50-gallon tank water heater, totally depleted in less than 8 minutes with a faucet like that.
Yep.
Tankless, however, the ones we're talking about, those 240As, those things are like, these things are just immensely capable at generating hot water at high rates. It's absolutely fantastic if you stop and think about the science and the math and the numbers and real life scenario.
What happens there? Yeah.
Yeah. My water going into those is as low as 38 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
And I can push out, their set point's 125.
Yeah.
And I'm not using 125 at the faucet. So I'm using, let's say, 100-degree water at like 5 gallons a minute.
Yeah.
It's insane what these things can do.
Yeah.
When you're feeding them with 40-degree water,
Yeah. I put that tub in the bathroom project here. I guess it's been in there a year ago, 8 months ago, something.
Yeah.
And when I first got it in there, I was excited because I had preempted the bathroom project with changing out my water heater. Well, water heater was 15 years old. It was a 50-gallon gas.
Yep.
It was way past time to go anyway. Like in my mind,
you raised 2 kids in the house with the 50-gallon water heater. Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, geez,
how did you guys live?
The humanity.
Just kidding.
Yeah. And that is first come, first serve is how that works.
It can be on certain days.
Get up early.
Yeah.
If you want to,
we're all going to shower today, it's going to be, you're going to want to get up early.
Yep. And so I put a NPE 240A2 when that first came out. I put one of those in, and like I said, so when I got the tub installed, we actually started using the tub because it's a bigger tub. And I was playing around with that, and my water's not nearly as cold as yours. I think we're like coldest in the 45, 48.
I wonder why your water is warmer.
I don't know.
Isn't that weird how that is?
Yeah.
We measured ours constantly at 40, and it gets colder, but I should retract let's say it's 40 degrees all the time.
Yeah.
It's always that though. I don't know why it's so cold.
I don't either. But anyway, I cranked on the hot side. The valve we use is a hot 2-handle. Cranked on the hot side, and I had 7.2 gallons a minute as per my mow and flow,
which has got to be accurate.
Pretty
right?
accurate. I mean, that thing's super accurate as far as I'm concerned. It's as accurate as anything on the hot side. And so one of the interesting things, like we've talked in the past, is the Navian will basically maintain flow, and your water temperature will begin to diminish, right? So it's not going to like restrict your outlet temp. It's going to do everything it can to basically provide that temperature. It's got an internal bypass in it where it'll kind of like overheat the water and then bypass, like a mixing valve setup.
Yeah, the only way you really see that dip in flow is like when you initially, when you crank that particular faucet you're talking about, or like it basically the same thing on my tub, where you've got like this dump load kind of flow where you're up over a couple gallons per minute. It will take there's like a hiccup.
Yep.
In like, whoa, and then it tries to, because it's got to ramp up. It can't be at full fire. Within like 2 or 3 seconds. It takes a few seconds.
Yeah. But I ended up, when I got all done and said with just hot side on only, at about 100 degrees temp with 7.5 gallons or little over 7 gallons a minute.
That's crazy.
And that's insane. That's an insane amount of hot water.
Well,
now granted, am I going to bathe in 100 degrees? No, not really. But all it took really was taking the hot side and turning it down just to clicking her back into about 6.5 gallons a minute, 6.25, and we were up over 110.
Yeah, which 110 is hot.
It's hot.
If people don't realize that. If you're not familiar, most hot tubs are set at 105, and that's too hot for most people.
Yep.
And you get up into that set point range of like the 120, 125. The factory setting on these tanks is 120, right?
Yep.
You couldn't, if you showered at 120, well then, I don't know, you're freaking Superman.
Yeah.
The, like your grandmother would have 2nd-degree burns, put it that way.
Right.
I'm not even trying to make a joke. Like it's a fact. Yeah. Water is very dangerous. And at that temperature, most people just don't understand you're not using as hot a water as you think you would be. And then some people do. Like my mother-in-law's crazy. I'm waiting for somebody to get hurt over there. Like I think her tank water heater set at like 150.
She comes out of the shower with the little blue bands on her hands.
Poached. No, so I bring up the tankless because taking out tankless isn't something that's like normal, right? Like you're not going to see me talking about taking out tankless because I'm talking, and I have been for like over a decade talking about installing tankless. I've been a big proponent of it.
Yep.
But I did remove and did not reinstall tankless water heaters at my house.
Yeah.
The whole reason I did this whole job in the first place was I have a boiler that originally was a prototype. It went into production shortly after I installed mine at my house. It was a slant fin. Anybody that's in the heating industry understands slant fin was I'm not big fans of their like condensing products and stuff like that, but their cast iron boilers company's was in business for like almost 100 years, for goodness sakes. U.S. company. They basically invented the art of manufacturing, copper fin tube baseboard. They owned a foundry here or were part owner of a foundry, whatever it was in that situation. Well-established company, been around forever. Yeah. They went out of business. And when they went out of business, somebody came in, I think it was Meztec, and said, yeah, we're going to buy the boiler industry or boiler business or the baseboard business from you, but we don't want anything to do with the boilers.
Yep.
And so shuttered. I don't think anything happened further beyond that point. Do you?
I feel like I had heard something that Utica may have been involved in that. Not involved, but
like on the cast iron side or something.
Picked up the casting side, like the rights to the castings or something. I don't know if they're using it. I could even be totally wrong on that. So
well, and who knows? I mean, how long for the world are we in like residential cast iron boilers? To be completely honest,
not long, in my opinion.
I'm not dogging on the technology or the product itself. It's just not our industry is moved on. And so shall we on this subject. I had a boiler that was, prototype at one point in time. I never loved it. It was free to me. But it was part of a testing, I had to kind of go through some checks and balances on that thing just to prove things were working. Had it connected to the internet, which was a huge problem, continually just connection problems with it.
Yeah. What was that boiler was 5 years old?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there?
Probably 5 only. I mean, wasn't old. It was fine. It was fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
But and I guess where I was going with that is you look at what the technology was for internet connectivity from boiler companies and thermostat companies 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It was dismal in comparison to today.
Well, everybody just needs to get on the board with, why aren't these boiler companies just teaming up with like, I'm going to say something right now is going to piss some people off, but why don't they just team up with like Google Nest?
Yeah.
This one I hope doesn't piss anybody off because I like the product. Or like Ecobee. What do you say? Ecobee or do you say Ecobee?
I don't know. Ecobee.
I say Ecobee.
ECO is eco to me.
Yeah. But it's economics. Not economic. I don't know. Anyway, there's my ADHD. The boiler had to go, in my opinion, because it wasn't going to be supported. And I just didn't want to deal with a broken boiler that only serves some slab radiant throughout my house and garage. It's not the most important thing in the world, but at this point, for maintenance purposes, I'm not going to let it turn off and become cold. I'm not going to shutter a system that's perfectly good in the with the risk of, even with glycol, with the risk of having something damaged, whether that's tubing or my slab, foundation, whatever. I'm going to heat it. Besides, I like the heated slabs. So there you go.
Absolutely.
There's nothing nicer than heated slabs, and then second to that would be, in my opinion, other heated surfaces like walls or ceilings. But the boiler had to go, and so here I had for so many years 299,000 BTU tankless water heaters and an 80,000 BTU boiler hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking at all these vents because they're all direct vented. Well, the tankless was common vented.
Okay.
But direct vented in the sense, I mean, still 2 pipes outside, right?
Yeah.
I've got 2 pipes outside for the boiler. So now there's 4 pipes there. And I also have a furnace, by the way, which I've done extensive coverage of that whole system on video form on my channels too, because I put that dual fuel system in last December, a year ago now. So I got 6 pipes just for gas appliances going out the side of my house.
Yeah.
All kind of in one spot, all in the wrong spot, by the way, because things came along at later dates and stuff. And then originally when I built the house, it was LP.
Yeah.
So the placement of my venting was to stay away from my LP regulator.
Sure.
Well, a number of years ago, natural gas was dug into my house. And so they put the meter right under one of my exhaust pipes.
Oh, geez.
I know. It's right above it. I mean, it's literally, my exhaust is right above it.
Well, man, I guess it's the exhaust. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah. Well,
but better than the intake.
It's sloped back enough that it wasn't like putting the water out there, but
dribbling on it.
Still a pain in my butt. So I've done like basically the biggest step in step 1 of simplifying things. Now, I'll get into the whole install and we're going to talk about that still yet. But like one of the things in my mind was, I got to redo this siding scenario where all my vents are coming out of the ridge there.
Yeah.
Or the sill. But I have steel siding. So it's like this whole thing. I'm trying to figure that out, but I need to eliminate all these pipes and put them in the right spot because they're just not in the right spot. Right. But in order to do that, I had to get rid of appliances. I just simplify. Right. I don't need 600,000 BTUs of gas to heat water and its various uses.
No.
And
like a test lab.
Yeah, well, it kind of was. I had stuff in there like I was trying different condensate neutralizer pumps and all this stuff. I don't need a pump. There's a floor drain. There's 2 floor drains in my mechanical room, and they're both within 5 feet. But I was just, it was a useful place for me to try different things out before I put them in for my customers or new products coming on the market. And I have the unique opportunity at times to try stuff out before they're even available to the public. So I was doing that in there. And so, yeah, a little bit of Frankenstein. Simplifying was my main thing though. Like, I loved my tankless, and I stated this so many times in the video. I'm not pulling out the tankless because I don't like tankless. And so enough about that. I decided to go with a boiler, heating boiler. And connected to that heating boiler was, of course, my heating system for the slab radiant, the in-floor heat, and then a 53-gallon indirect water heater.
Right.
I didn't go with a combi boiler. I went with a storage tank. So I kind of went sort of backwards, right? I mean, in theory, I wasn't storing water before. That was never on purpose to me, though. Like, I don't look at tankless as a means of getting away from storing water. I look at tankless as performance. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I do as well. I mean, I think that the tankless is nice. You get compact size, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the big benefits. You're not storing water to...
Yeah, failed tanks, I guess, there's definitely a benefit there. I shouldn't have said it that way.
I guess I guess in my mind, though, I have to quantify that as an indirect water heater is like apples to oranges to a gas water heater or an electric tank, right? One in their construction, especially the units that we're using.
Yep.
A stainless steel tank that's, lifetime warranty and insulated. Like, I mean, you could walk up to that tank today. You could probably walk into your house and it was the ambient room temperature on the jacket.
Yeah, no, I've hit them with my infrared before, and I know they're metal and everything like that, but they don't show any, just at the piping connections, just there where there's the void in the insulation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So they're exceptional in that category as far as heat storage. So I kind of look at it and go, well, what is our generation process efficiency, right? Is the boiler 96% efficient when it's making hot water? Yeah, with that Viessmann, probably.
It's
Real
probably, it's in
close.
the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, if you ran your analyzer on it, I bet it's in the mid 90s while it's running. Granted, I mean, that's a calculated number, but so it is everywhere else. It's not like somebody's got an efficiency meter.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's there. I mean, there's a lot of discussion that people will have about, like, well, when you're making DHW, you're down to 75% efficient. No, actually, I'm not. In some boilers, yes, you are, but I bet that during the biggest chunk of recovery on your boiler, you're not at 180.
No,
it's 168, something like that. And it's just idling along at 21% and just cranking heat out.
So let me back up for 1 second though.
Yeah.
I think there are people listening that are like, what are they talking about? Indirect. What is an indirect water heater? Just real fast. Yeah. In this case, it's a tank water heater. And on the side of this specific model, on the side of it are 4 connections, 5 really, but there's a cold inlet at the very bottom. So there's a 3/4 inch male iron pipe thread connection that goes directly into the tank. That's how the tank is filled, right from the bottom.
Yep.
There's no connections on the top of this tank with a dip tube directing the water to the bottom. It's just right at the bottom. You go up from there about a foot and there's a 1-inch male connection. That is one end of a 1-inch, like 3/16, I think, I don't know, 3/16 stainless steel coil of tubing, a heat exchanger submerged in the tank. It's welded through the sidewall of the tank and everything like that. And on the you go up to the next piping connection. That's the other end of that heat exchanger. That's the supply coming from the boiler and the return going back to the boiler. Those 2 connections. Then there's also a tapping for recirc return, and then at the top is your hot. So basically, what it is in this case, it's a stainless steel tank. Inside of that tank is a relatively compact but high surface area 1-inch stainless steel coil of tubing of piping that the hot boiler water runs through, so it doesn't mix with the water. They call it indirect because there's no like power source on the tank. It's heated indirectly from another source. In this case, my boiler.
Yep.
Okay. There's what an indirect water heater is in depth. Oh, and then there's a sensor that tells the boiler what the temperature is. Obviously, you got to be able to turn this thing on and off with something.
Yeah. You can basically take the efficiency of whatever your heat source is and transfer that to your water heater.
Yeah. I think in most cases, almost residential for sure. Yeah, I think that's probably the case. I mean, maybe different scenarios that changes, but I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to.
Right.
I'm not going to split hairs on that one.
Yeah.
I think you're right though. So like I look at it as it is a tank water heater, but the recovery, the ability for the boiler to recover on an indirect water heater is quite a bit different than like an atmospheric burner, power vented gas water heater or gravity vented. It's totally different. The heat exchange is at a rate that is significantly higher, more effective, more efficient.
Right.
And so oftentimes with indirect water heaters, when installed correctly, with a properly sized boiler that doesn't have to be sized necessarily like beyond the load of the heating system, most boilers, 85,000 BTU boilers, more than capable on the systems we install of heating a indirect water heater for almost like every residential application. Yeah. And so I'm not upsizing my boiler at all. I don't even understand people's argument for that for residential.
Right.
I could see it for like, apartments and stuff. But anyway, the recovery is crazy. So like these things put out a massive amount of water. And what I was just going to say is oftentimes we can put in a smaller tank than we tore out before.
Yeah.
So like I put in 42 gallon indirects all the time where I'm taking out 50, 65 gallon water heaters and people are like, oh, it's kind of small. And I'm like, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
This thing is like a beast for making hot water.
Right. Well, I mean, your standard gas water heater, like 50 gas is like 68 gallons an hour.
Yeah.
Right. And the standard 42 gallon with an 85,000 BTU boiler is like 4 times that.
It's like I think it's like 120 or something like that, or maybe more. I don't know.
Not, but anyway, yeah.
Nonetheless,
it's a ton of hot water.
It's more water than you're going to use. And if you need that kind of water, then, we would be looking at different things. Is tankless a better option?
Yeah.
Multiple tankless, by the way, or a larger indirect water heater, things like that. Some of the questions I got early on Instagram were, well, how come you're not using a combi boiler? My answer to that's pretty clear. I'm not the world's biggest fan of combi boilers. And I don't need to get into it real, like I've got some reasonings, and my reasoning basically relies on this. I do service and repair work primarily as my business model. I have installed more than my share of combi boilers because when they became, code compliant here in Minnesota for the first time, right around like 2012, I think it was, because prior to that, we weren't allowed to install them because of like the whole double wall heat exchanger, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I jumped on that bandwagon. I thought right away, like, oh, this is great. I can do 2 things in one. It's all in a compact box, like you were bringing up about tankless.
Yeah.
Takes up less space. There's less going on. Well, there's not really less going on. It's just all going on inside of smaller space. After about 5-6 years, I learned on all of my installs, and it might have been equipment related, but I was starting to put parts into them.
Tons.
That were out of warranty, that were, in my opinion, kind of, they shouldn't have been parts that needed necessarily to be replaced in that short amount of time, given things like good water quality, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just think that they're overcomplicated. There's a place for them, and I don't think it's for most whole home applications.
Right. By their design, what I've seen with them in the same thing is that at that 5 to 7 year mark on a combi, at least the stuff we were installing 7 years ago, that the cycle rate that the unit has counted at that point is at or near what the same is that the boilers that we're taking out because they're wore out.
Yeah, and the boilers are 15 years old.
Right. And so that's part of where I'm reluctant. I got a lot of competitors around town that are selling combis, right? Yeah. They're selling tons of them.
Me too.
And, I'm not going to say they're a bad boiler. They're just not, it's not the value point that I'm trying to convey to my customers. I want to sell them a long lasting, reliable heating system. And if I have room, it's going to have an indirect.
That's what I'm going with too.
Combi.
Yep. So, same reason, for the same reasons, based on my experience. That's why I've come to the conclusion, and I'm pretty steadfast on that. I don't think that they're for every job. Are there jobs where they are really the only thing that makes sense? Yeah, absolutely. I just installed one like 3 weeks ago. You know what I mean? I don't love them, but I'm not going to not install if it's the right thing. Anyway, it was not the right thing for my house. I don't want to deal with a combi at my own home. Yep. I think that they're just too much trouble given some time and use on them. Like you said, cycles. What's that?
You had options.
I had options, and I used what I felt was better.
In reality, that, and like you say though, looking at that boiler, if you go with a boiler and an indirect versus a boiler combi, the price point is not significant.
No, it's not
just for what it's worth. For anybody out there that's like, oh well, I could get one, and it's got to be cheaper than 2, and they're really not. Especially doing, your labor is essentially free at this point in your house. But even going out to customers, I find that when we're installing combis, that we're 99% of the time installing a boiler that's too big.
Yeah. Oh, every time. Every time I've installed a combi, the boiler on the heating side was way more than I needed. Way more. And yeah, you can do things with programming and stuff, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not
what you're working on.
No, we're not. Yeah. Who cares about that? It's just too big. If it's too big, it's too big. The system itself, I put in a buffer tank. Some people might not know what a buffer is, or if you're familiar with hydronics, maybe you just haven't had experience with it.
Yeah.
And so what a buffer does, a few different things. Ultimately, at the most simplest form, it adds volume to your system.
Right.
So these boilers don't hold any water. These old cast iron boilers, they held like gallons and gallons of water, right? And that was a huge advantage because you could slow down the flow, you could increase the heat exchange, you could, kind of balance the system in a way that you didn't have these high velocities and flow rates and stuff to deliver the same amount of water. Yes, you had larger pipe sizes. It was, less efficient, things like that. But now these new boilers, they're 24 years old. They don't hold any water. You need to push a lot of water through them, but they really benefit from being connected to a system that has just like tons of water in it. So it can just evenly and slowly ramp up and heat that system. Well, with the in-floor heat system, first of all, half-inch PEX. Half-inch PEX takes, did you know this, Andy? 0.92 gallons per 100 feet. That's a number that's been in my head since I was an apprentice. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So
not a lot of water.
It's not a lot of water. It's not a lot. It's a low, and when it comes to the water content, it's low water content in the heat emitter. It doesn't take a lot of water to fill a radiant system, like per feet of piping, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? And so the boiler it needs to run for as long as possible, and it wants to modulate all the way down to its lowest input ever. At least that's how these Viessmanns run, and they're beautiful that way. And in order to do that, you need to be able to move, it can heat water quickly, but it doesn't want to. It wants to heat it at an even, steady pace at only what's required to match like heat load. You got to increase mass. In order to do that, it benefits your boiler so much.
Yeah.
And so I want my boiler to turn on, and I actually don't even want it to ever shut off, to be completely honest, which is ridiculous when you say it out loud, but that's the reality. If you're talking about efficiency and life cycle and stuff like that. And adding the mass helps that. The other thing that a buffer tank really does ultimately is when you have multiple zones in a system and those zones start getting small, like smaller than the boiler is able to ramp down to for its delivery.
Sure.
So like its lowest input on BTU, the burner side of things, directly relates to how many gallons per minute you need to move through that boiler for it to stay running.
Right.
And so if I had a zone that's only, 5,000 BTUs based off of the outdoor temperatures, time of year, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And I need that water to only be like 80 degrees because we're talking about radiant heating now.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need hot water. It's impossible for a boiler to turn down enough in order to stay running without overheating the water.
Yeah.
And so this buffer helps that. So when that small zone or that low load, it doesn't even have to be a zone in a sense, but like when the load is at its lowest point, even if you don't, even if all your zones were equal in size, when the load is at its lowest point, that buffer does a tremendous job at allowing your boiler to stay running so that you're delivering only what's needed to the heating system, which is efficiency. That is where you get these 95%, when you get into those 90 percentile AFUEs and stuff, that's how you do it. You keep it you keep it running, first of all. This is the same when you talk about like sizing air conditioning, when you look at like heat exchangers and case coils, things like, there's a reason why the surface area is what it is, because you got to keep these things running at the optimal parameters. That's what we're talking about when we talk about a buffer tank.
Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty of like this little Zillmet tank that you installed, right?
Yeah.
That little ZBT7. We have asked, and this has been a 10 years in the making.
You and I have beat this drum so many times.
For you and I was like, in the beginning, hey, can you like glue 2 5-gallon buckets together and then put a wall bracket on it and insulate it so I can hang it on the wall.
Yeah.
And we walked around the corner at AHR last year, and we were both at the same time, like tripping over our tongues, like, what the hell what is that thing?
It's sweet. It's so cool.
Here's this 7-gallon buffer tank for residential. That is a sweet size.
And it's right priced, in my opinion. And you look at buffer tanks that were on the market before, and they were high cost, and probably due to they just weren't selling them. So the companies were just having to price point them at, they weren't, you couldn't justify, in some cases, adding them to the added cost of that component to the system was prohibitive.
Right.
It's the same price as a low loss header or less.
Right.
So
it's right there.
Yeah. And so I bring up low loss headers. Again, for the boiler pals out there, a low loss header achieves a whole bunch of things kind of all in one package, eliminates components if you're buying the right ones, They do air elimination. They decouple your boiler from the heating side of the system, which allows that proper flow rate through the boiler, proper flow rate through the zoning side of things. Everything works so much better when you start doing this hydraulic separation, or hydraulic separators, they call low loss headers too. It's basically what a buffer tank is doing too.
Yeah. Same concept.
Same whole thing it's all about gallons per minute flow. So we're satisfying, and we're keeping things even and properly set up through the system. One side doesn't really affect the other when it comes to the flow rates. And that's a huge thing when it comes to hydronics, if you're not familiar. The buffer tank was huge. I didn't go the combi. I got rid of tankless. I have 2 pipes going out the wall right now. I've got 2 pipes I eliminated. They're still kind of there. They're capped off right now. I got to do the whole siding. It's probably not even going to happen before it snows. I'm going to try though.
Yeah.
To get that all ironed out. On the siding on the outside of the house, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Change the layout. I have to revent my boilers and stuff like that, and that's fine. I mean, they're just hooked up to through the existing holes I had before, and drill more.
Right.
Because I knew that things are going to kind of have to get jogged around a little bit, but so far so good. I know we're getting long, but I want to bring it up real quick. The tank, the indirect water heater.
Yeah.
I hooked a recirc up to that, right? So I had a dedicated recirc line going back, or return line going back from my farthest bathroom, which happens to be the primary, back to the water heaters. It's been there since I built the house. And I got to tell you what, if you're not selling a product for recirculation to your customers, I'm talking to plumbing people here, anybody dealing with water heating, you need to be. First of all, your customers will start selling these things for you. And Andy, you and I are super familiar with the product I used. Right. It's that Takeo 006 hot water recirc system, I guess you call it. It's this really nice plastic EP bodied ECM motor hot water recirculation, made for potable water.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I buy it and I couple it up with that smart switch that Takeo uses.
Smart
plug. Yeah. Which operates the pump. It operates any pump. You can just buy this plug and put it, if you have an existing pump you like or have already installed and you want to make it smart, this thing does it.
Yeah. It's basically like an intelligent lamp timer.
It's really simple, to be honest with you, like you said, but it does a few different functions, and it can go as far as like putting your recirc into vacation mode when it doesn't see you're actually using hot water. So like if you do leave for a few days, and this thing will actually save you a little energy by shutting her down too, right?
Yeah.
But recirc in general, I mean, my family has not, for the last 22 years, not known plumbing to where you turn the faucet on and within just seconds it's hot.
Yeah.
They don't know anything else.
Right.
My kids have literally never lived a life waiting for hot water. I'm going to put it that way.
Right.
And so this pump was a nice little touch. I had it built into, I didn't have to have the circulator before because it was built into my tankless. But my point being is this pump is not only for if you have the direct dedicated return line in your house, you can actually use this system. And then there's another device that goes under like a faraway sink, up to 3 of them, believe it or not, in the house. And it'll couple the cold and the hot together at where this device is installed. So you can actually generate and pull hot water to that fixture with this pump.
Sure.
And so then you create a recirc line for your customer or in your own home.
It works exceptional. We do it on quite a few houses. I have it in my house because I don't have a dedicated recirc, and it works outstanding.
They're great. My customers love them. In fact, I always start the conversation with, like, I can address the waiting for hot water thing because it's annoying, and you're not gonna. And I tell people, I acknowledge right away. I'm like, look, I know you're probably wondering, like, how much do I hate this? I think about this very often. And then I put the system in, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe how much I waited for hot water before.
Yeah.
They just love it. They love it. And I bring it up because I think that product's worth promoting, to be honest with you. There's other systems in the industry. I think this Takeo one's just kind of the most universal one I've found. It'll fit pretty much any system.
Well, and then, like you say, the connections on the circulator, being that 1-inch G union thread, is sweet, because then if you're like, oh, I want to have pressed copper on this side, and we're going to go to male iron pipe on this other side, and
which I do often, by the way.
Did you know that our friends over at Webstone,
oh boy,
make a G union check valve by like every freaking fitting that you can ever think of
on the pipe side? That you can get it for any kind of connection.
Guess where that's really handy,
on that
on
pump.
the outlet of that pump.
Yep. You're not wrong. Especially if you've got a mixing valve.
Exactly.
So you need it regardless, or I mean, you should have it regardless.
Yep.
If there's any plumbing anywhere close to that, that recirc.
Right.
I guess you could maybe get away with it. But anyway, when you have a thermostatic mixing valve and a recirc, there becomes a little bit different on how you plumb things.
Yeah.
And having that fitting, which I didn't have, by the way. I didn't have everything I needed when I sat down, and I started this project. And that was one of them, and I was bummed, actually, because I was digging through my entire shop. I kind of had it turned upside down. Probably spent too much time looking for that fitting, thinking I had one, and I must have not replenished when I used it last. But anyway, in the end, I'm going to wrap this up. We've been talking a long time. I do think that I have simplified things in my own home. It might sound like it's a little complicated, maybe because you don't fully understand that, or maybe you can't picture it. I'm going to try to do a live video. Maybe by the time this airs, I've already done that over on Instagram. I just think that I'm trying to set myself up for less maintenance and less like potential failure.
Yeah.
Now, if my boiler fails, I don't have heat for the slab, for the in-floor heat, and I don't have domestic hot water. But here's the deal. People ask about putting your stuff all in one basket and whatnot. We do it all the time. Everybody does it. Everybody's already done it. If you have forced air system and central heat, and air conditioning, if your furnace dies, you don't have air conditioning, right? Yep. I mean, this isn't rare here. Like, I'm not worried about not having hot water if my boiler were to fail. Because, you could have a separate water. Yeah, I did before. And I was trying to simplify things. If my boiler fails, whether it's during heating season and I don't have heat, and coupled with that, I don't have domestic hot water, I got to fix it anyway.
Yeah.
And water heaters fail too, by the way. So I just don't, I guess my point being is not to like go on and on about it, but we do it all the time. Equipment is reliable. This system I installed is something that I do on a very normal, regular. This is a job I sell all the time. Yeah. To be honest with you.
Just not in your own home.
Just not in my own home. I get paid to do it other places. And this is something that's just like normal in the industry. It's very reliable, very efficient. It's proven. And so anything mechanical is going to break down. And I don't care if that mechanical device is doing two things instead of just one. It's going to happen.
Yep.
It's going to happen.
That's what it is.
Yep.
How long did it, how many trips did you have out to the shop?
Oh God, I wore a path.
Like, it's like dirt.
It's dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a permanent path out to my shop from my walkout basement. Right. Up a slight hill. It's not a big hill.
Yeah.
So I got my steps in every day by about noon. No, I Monday started, got a later start. I had to bring Heather to the airport, and then things just take a while. And then I'm, messing with cameras and all this crap. Knocked her off at about like 8 p.m., but I honestly didn't even start until like 1 o'clock on Friday.
Yeah.
I think I said Monday a minute. Friday. And then Saturday I worked all day. Totally. But I also, again, videoing and stuff like this. I started the day on Saturday, took a service call quick. Guy called me off of Google, pinhole leak in his copper in town. I'm like, it's turbulence, whatever. Said, you need to, I said, how old's your house? And he says 25 years. And I said, well, in this particular neighborhood, they have pressure reducing valves.
Yeah.
I said, your pressure reducing valve, I'm just going to tell you right now, let's just change it. It's 25 years old.
Yeah.
Let's put a new one in because you've probably overshot its settings. It's probably not working properly anymore. I said, does it make any noise? He's like, yeah, once in a while we get like this weird buzzing noise. I'm like, okay. New pressure reducing valve, put in a new copper line as far as I could reach, as far as I could get to. And so then here I am, 10:30 in the morning, fixing somebody else's plumbing when I should be working on my own. By the way.
When yours is in the yard.
Yeah, mine is in. Yeah, exactly. Mine is in the new trailer, bro.
Yeah,
it was so nice having that. It was so nice.
Yeah,
my God. And yeah, there you go. I wore a path. Back and forth. That's a whole other subject. You were going to bring that up. You didn't. Man.
I was good, and I kind of forgot about it.
The amount of time you spend working on your own house, and then the inefficiency that you set yourself up with. It's your own doing. We all do it. There's no way we don't. Because your retelling of your job is exactly like what I do.
Yeah.
You start out and you don't bring everything in.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world are you thinking?
Bring your stuff in, and you're like, yeah. It cracks me up because like the last time I was working on the shower, like I don't remember what it was doing. I was plumbing something. My van is literally parked in front of the shop. So nobody's ever seen my yard. It's, I don't know, 100 feet, 150 feet from the house. Right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like parking at the neighbor's house and trying to work on the house next door. It's the dumbest thing I've ever done. I have a driveway.
My God, that is so hilarious.
With a garage. And I could literally walk through the overhead garage door through one door and I'm in my primary bathroom.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Right? I could almost park my van in the garage, but no, I'm going to park out by the shop.
Yeah. And walk out there.
Because it's inconvenient to move my van. I'd just rather walk 100 times.
I know. It's like we're pack mules,
About halfway through the day, I'm like, I should have just parked this by that house.
I know. Yeah, no, you got a great point.
An hour.
Think of it this way. You got a job today. You got to hurry up and get there. But before you knock on the front door and tell them you're there, you parked in the neighbor's yard. Right. Does that make any sense? Down. Yeah. Like it doesn't exactly. I did the same thing. I did bring the van, to walk out and I'm able to drive back there. Yeah. But, there's all my crap was in my shop, the boiler, all this stuff. I didn't put it on my tray. I didn't do anything efficient when it came to that. So, yeah, it just takes longer.
Did you hand truck the boiler across the yard at least?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Why would I put it on the trailer and make it, or in my van? Why would I make it easy on myself? Right. I got to go down the hill, and it's like at a slant too. Yeah. So, like, I'm going to lose this thing at any given point. And it's not like a boiler's like light,
No, they're 125 pounds, 130
and
pounds.
so I'm waiting for it to tip off the side of my perfectly good two-wheeler that I didn't need to be using at that moment in time.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's the way it works.
It was a long one. We haven't had as long of one in a while, but
no.
Yeah. Let me remind everybody, send in your topic ideas always.
Yep.
And your feedback. Super appreciated. Your feedback to us is a gift. That's how we view it. You can message us. There's a function there. You can send us a text message. We can't reply to you directly on that, but we will get the message and we'll read it, both of us. And if it's something about the show or something like that, we're going to take it and run with it.
Okay.
Andy, they can email us. What's that?
Make trades great again at Gmail. Really long.
It is. And we love getting emails from you.
That's right.
We do. Hit us up over on the socials. And we hope to have you back next week. We do appreciate your time.
All right. Have a good one.
You too, man.